I'd like to bring this hearing to order, and I welcome everyone to our first joint hybrid hearing of the 117th Congress between Readiness and Tactical Air and Land. I'd like to welcome my colleagues, the Chairman of Readiness, Chairman Garamendi, my ranking member from Missouri, Ms. Hartzler, and the ranking member from Readiness, Doug Lamborn. Good to have you here. This hearing is focused on the department's most expensive, complex, in the history of our country, the F-35 strike fighter. I would like to welcome members who are joining us today, joint hearing remotely. Members who are participating remotely must be visible on screen for the purpose of identification, establishing and maintaining a quorum, participating in proceedings, and voting. Remote attending members must continue to use the software platform video function the entire time while in attendance, unless they're experiencing connectivity issues or other technical problems that render them unable to participate on camera. If a member experiences technical difficulties, they should contact the committee staff for assistance. Video of members' participation will be broadcast in the room, as you see, via the television sets and internet feeds. Members participating remotely must seek recognition verbally, and they are asked to mute their microphones when they are not speaking. Remote members may leave and rejoin the proceedings. However, if a remote member departs our hearing for a short while for reasons other than joining a different proceedings, they should leave the video function on. If members will be absent for a significant period or to depart to join a different proceedings, they should exit the platform entirely and rejoin it when they return. Members may use the software platform's chat feature to communicate with staff regarding only technical or logistic issues supports. I've designated committee staff member to, if necessary, mute unrecognized members' microphones to cancel any inadvertent background noise that may disrupt the proceedings. And finally, all members, staff, and attendees in the hearing room, and the chair reminds everyone that they are required to observe standards of courtesy and decorum during the committee proceedings. This requirement includes responsibility to protect public safety and health, particularly during the pandemic. Members, staff, attendees are required to wear masks at all times in the hearing room without exception. Members who are attending this proceedings in person will not be recognized unless they're wearing a mask. The recognition will be withdrawn if a member removes his or her mask while speaking. The chair expects all members, staff, attendees to adhere to this requirement as a sign of respect for health and safety and the well-being of others. The chair views the failure to wear a mask as a serious breach of decorum. With that, I'd like to give my opening statement. Today we have two panels of witnesses testifying, and I welcome and want to thank them for being on the panels and those witnesses for taking time to come here to discuss the accomplishments, issues, and certainly the risk of the program. We're going to hear from leaders from the Department of Defense and two of the industry's prime contractors, as well as the GAO, the Government Accounting Office, serving as our independent agencies, helping us to evaluate production and sustainment of this challenging program. Please note GAO witness will be in both panels. This October will mark the 20th anniversary of the start of the F-35 development, 2 decades. And we still find the program struggling with risky, highly concurrent acquisition decisions made by past program leaders. The F-35 has been plagued throughout with unforeseen increase of development, production, and its maintenance and sustainment activities. Recent achievements of the aircraft are reassuring. The cost below $80 million, and that certainly is appreciated, and that is for the A-frame. The program certainly has also failed to achieve full-rate production as planned, and still finds itself in low-rate production, delivering less than the warfighter requirements. The Technical Refresh 3, or as we know, the TR3 and Block 4 combat capability F-35 is still at least 5 years away before declaring full operational capabilities. That's a quarter century to get there. And according to plan, we certainly find that based on recent developments that we expect that to slip also. My current skepticism is driven by recent media reporting that the completion of the Joint Simulation Environment testing, supporting initiative tests, and evaluation activities may not be completed until the end of 2022, which is a delay of more than 3 years beyond the plan. Also, after a little bit more than 2 years into development, our understanding is that TR3 hardware supporting Block 4 capabilities is approximately 4 to 5 months behind schedule and likely to be near $450 million over its planned budget. Additionally, the Block 4 software development is on shaky ground because Block 3F software, which is the foundation for Block 4, is a multi-year patchwork of inefficient and poorly designed software code that has been rushed to preserve the program schedule without undergoing the rigorous and full testing to find and fix the deficiencies prior to fielding. And this is resulting in significant software issues at the time when it's discovered in the field. Knowing that Block 4 capability is a significant leap, and it is, those combat capabilities and mission systems integration complexity, but we're very concerned that the program will be unable to maintain its projected pace of Block 4 development and fielding without encountering significant software issues, resulting in even further delay. And finally, we're very concerned about the actual and projected sustainment costs that have been deemed unaffordable by senior Air Force leaders. This question of estimated costs and affordability could result in a 47% reduction in the Air Force planned inventory goal of 1,763 aircraft, just to remain within their budget. I know our colleagues from Readiness will be addressing the program's specific sustainment concerns, but if this program continues to fail to significantly control and reduce actual and projected sustainment costs, we may need to invest in other more affordable programs and backfill an operational shortfall of potentially over 800 tactical fighters. The Tactical Air and Land Subcommittee has been supportive of this program in the past, but as we've said many times, we don't have an unlimited resources. As we chase this elusive affordability of the program, and given the overall affordability concerns that exist within the program, I would not support any requests for additional aircraft beyond what is contained in this year's President's budget request. We've seen over the past, since 2015, we have upped 97 jets, which has created a sustainment issue for parts and others, and we'll get more into that with our questions. But before I turn it over to Mrs. Harsler, I think it's important for us to just take a moment and thank those workers who, through a pandemic, have kept this and all our programs working. They have a debt of gratitude from the people in this panel for doing what they do, helping to keep our country safe. They sacrificed, and would you please relate to your workforce that our appreciation for what they do. With that, I want to turn it over to our ranking member, Vicki Hartzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and well said. Words of appreciation for your workforce who've continued to work throughout the pandemic and produce aircraft for our nation, and we are grateful for that. The F-35 is a tremendous platform that is critical to our modernization efforts. Fielding a fully mission-capable F-35 will fill a serious capability gap in our fighter fleet and help keep us ahead of our adversaries. But it's also one of the largest, most expensive, and most complex acquisition programs in DoD history. and getting it done right has been a struggle for both the department and industry. Although progress continues to be made, I share the concerns my colleagues have expressed about capability delays, affordability issues, and readiness problems which continue to impact the program. I'm particularly concerned with delays in the development of Tech Refresh 3 and the development of Block 4 capabilities. The chairman touched on this a little bit. But as GAO recently found, the DoD's current timeline of 2027 to complete Block 4 upgrades is unachievable. This is troubling because while the F-35 is currently one of the most advanced fighter aircraft on Earth, our adversaries are quickly catching up. The rapid modernization of the Chinese military, especially its anti-access, area denial capabilities, will soon challenge the F-35's relevance. Block 4 capabilities are needed as soon as possible to maintain the F-35's superiority and ensure a credible deterrent against China and our adversaries. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about the actions being taken to overcome the challenges associated with Tech Refresh 3 and the Block 4 upgrades, as well as how risk associated with these delays are being mitigated. I'm also concerned that after nearly 2 decades and over 600 aircraft acquired, we are still in the operational test and evaluation phase. The F-35 cannot move into full-rate production until the DoD completes the joint simulator environment and conduct the complex test scenarios that will validate the aircraft's capabilities. According to recent reports, the simulator will not be ready until late 2022. That's over 3 years behind schedule. In the interim, DoD and industry must work to resolve over 800 deficiencies which impact performance and safety. Our goal should be to field a fully mission-capable aircraft as soon as possible. That cannot happen until we can test the aircraft against its requirements and prove to the taxpayer that it does what we need it to do. I hope our witnesses can explain why the schedule on this important milestone continues to slip. I know my Readiness Subcommittee colleagues intend to raise a host of concerns associated with sustainment costs and reliability. I share their concerns, and I look forward to that discussion with our witnesses. But it's not all gloom and doom. The F-35 has come a long way in recent years. I applaud the DoD and industry for their progress, especially for significantly reducing flyaway costs. But we still have a long way to go. We need to overcome these remaining challenges, and we need to do it quickly. A fully mission-capable F-35 is vital to our national security. So I want to thank all of our witnesses for being with us today, and I look forward to an open and candid discussion. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you to Chairman of Readiness, Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to take a deep breath and try to contain my anger at what is going on here. The F-35 is the most expensive program in the history of the Department of Defense, and the sustainment costs are expected to exceed $1.2 trillion over the life of the program. The program's over budget. It fails to deliver on promised capabilities, and its mission capability rates do not even begin to meet the service thresholds. It seems that the case of this industry's solution to many of these problems is simply to ask the taxpayers to throw money at the problem. That will not happen. The easy days of the past are over. The hard days going forward are that this issue must be resolved, and it's going to get resolved in the work of this committee this year. So, don't expect more money. Do not expect to have more planes purchased than authorized in the President's budget. That's not going to happen. The 97 planes that were added over the last 7 years have simply created a bigger problem for the sustainment of this fleet. The F-35 is designed to generate a high sortie rates of fully mission-capable aircraft that can operate and persist inside a threat envelope of our near-peer adversaries. You've just heard the concerns of my colleagues. We're 20 years into this program, and we have not achieved that goal. The propulsion system sustainment for this aircraft is not meeting requirements. On the good news side of the ledger, The engine's mission-capable rate is higher than 94%. That's great. The engine's time on wing rate also exceeds requirements, and that's good. So I then have a hard time understanding why the Joint Program Office forecasts that a greater than 1/3 of the F-35 fleet will not have a serviceable engine by 2030. A full third of the aircraft will simply not have an engine. Now, we do know that the engine repair system is not meeting capacity goals, and the recent engine power module issue resulted in 9 unscheduled engine changes during the 2020 Air Force deployment. Why? Is this a function of not having the required repair capability and capacity at our organic repair facilities? Are we missing the right tooling for the ground support equipment? Do we need better access to technical data? The answer is yes to each and every one of those. I want to hear fully the answers to those questions. I will tell you once again, the status quo is unaffordable, it is unacceptable, and it will not continue. Turning to aircraft availability, the mission capability rate objective are 90% for the Air Force, 85% for the Navy, and 85% for the Marine Corps. Yet we have seen a stable non-mission capability for supply rate in the high teens. This NMCS rate alone makes it impossible for the services to achieve their readiness objectives. And what are we doing to address this? We're buying more planes, and the sustainment rate continues to fall. I want to hear from the witnesses today, beginning with Ms. Maurer, on the health of the supply chain, the parts of the system. I want to hear about Alice or Odin. Have we simply changed the name and maintained the same problem? Our problems are a function of not spending enough money on spare parts and repair capability. 20 years into this, and we still have not figured out how to maintain the planes. What the hell is that all about? We don't have the intelligence to understand that these planes are going to need to be maintained, and we didn't bother to set up a system to maintain them. Not in the depots, not in the field. Come on now. This is not going to continue. The Joint Program Office briefed me on the readiness rates of the recent Air Force F-35 combat deployments. That's commendable. I question, however, whether achieving high readiness in one location creates a lack of readiness somewhere else. Are we simply stealing parts from somewhere so we can keep something going otherwhere? Probably so. The supply system. Could it meet the demand signals of a large-scale combat operations? The answer is no, it cannot. So the most expensive platform ever in the department cannot sustain a large combat operation. Oh, that's really brilliant. The full mission capability rates for the F-35A, F-35B, and C are 54%, 15%, and 7%. Ponder that for a moment. Yeah, it can fly, maybe 2/3 of the time, but it can't do what it's supposed to do all of the time or even half of the time. And for the Marine Corps version, 7% of the time. What's that all about? Why are we in that situation? 20 years into this. Affordability. Shall we talk about that? We've heard from my colleagues already on this. The 2019 GAO report said that steady state projected cost of the aircraft would exceed affordability constraints for each of the 3 services. In fact, and we're going to hear about this shortly from Ms. Maurer, the GAO reported in 2019 that the Air Force would have to reduce sustainment costs. The Air Force would have to reduce sustainment costs by 43%. The Marine Corps by 24%, and God Good news, the Navy by only 5% in order to afford their end state production goals. I understand the GAO has revisited these issues and we'll hear about it, and I would be surprised if it's any better now than it was in 2019. So we'll hear about that. We're going to need to know how we're going to drive down these costs of sustainment. Shall I repeat that? How are we going to drive down these costs? I don't see our generals with all the stars on their shoulders here, but they better be listening because they're going to hear this again when their turn comes up. It's going to be some hard decisions being made on this program. We're not going to let it go any longer with a lot of happy talk. That's not going to happen. So, let's get on with it. Ms. Maurer, thank you so very much for your report. It's not happy bedtime reading designed to put somebody to sleep. Kept me awake most of the night. If you notice that the chairman of the Readiness Committee is upset that the chairman, this chairman, not this chairman, but the previous chairman simply added to the burden of readiness by allowing the plus up of additional aircraft. 97 aircraft added to the fleet without a sustainment plan, increasing the burden on those planes that were supposed to be in the fleet and sustained. We got a problem, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to work on it. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. The ranking member from Readiness, Mr. Lamborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank the witnesses here today that are responsible for delivering, operating, and sustaining the F-35. Our nation's adversaries are advancing their military capabilities at an alarming rate. It is more important than ever that we maintain our advantage against these peer and near-peer countries. Critical to our advantage will be the fifth-generation F-35 warfighter. While we are currently flying 400, plans include the procurement of close to 2,500. Over the past several years, this committee has focused on both the affordability and availability of the F-35. From a readiness perspective, we must ensure that the F-35 capability is sustainable. As noted in the statements of both Pratt and Whitney and Lockheed Martin, I appreciate the efforts underway to address these challenges, but it is clear more work needs to be done by all stakeholders. We need a ready deterrent in our F-35 platform, yet readiness metrics, including mission-capable and fully mission-capable rates, are concerning. While trending in the right direction, they are still below the service's established objectives. GAO has identified several factors and challenges to F-35 readiness, including the supply chain, the engine, and the Autonomic Logistics Information System, ALICE, supporting operations planning, supply chain management, and maintenance. Engine availability is a critical piece to this puzzle, as is the delayed stand-up of depot capacity. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today how they are working together to address these challenges. The F-35 is a vital national security investment with a planned life cycle of 66 years. I am concerned that estimated life cycle sustainment costs continue to increase. While procuring the F-35 capability is vital to national security, we must ensure that we can afford to employ it well into the future. On this point, time is of the essence. It will be more difficult to reduce sustainment costs as the fleet of F-35 aircraft grows. I hope to hear today how the team is working to ensure the Navy, Marine Corps, and Army can afford to fly the F-35, and specifically how all stakeholders are working together to address the cost gap between projected costs and affordability constraints. I am committed to continuing our investment into the F-35 platform and fifth-generation capability because I believe it is necessary to maintain our advantage against adversaries like China. But it is also clear that sustainment challenges exist. If our industry stakeholders don't succeed in quickly driving down the sustainment cost of the F-35, I fear critics of the program will be dealt a stronger hand in their calls to gut the program. So I encourage all stakeholders involved, the services, the Joint Program Office, and the contractors, to get on the same page when it comes to sustainment and affordability. Thank you to the witnesses for their time. I look forward to today's discussion and yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. And just as a note, we're expecting votes somewhere 10:30 to 11 o'clock. As I understand, we have 3 votes. So with a little bit of luck, hopefully we'll be able to work that in between the panels. As I mentioned, we do have 2 panels, and the first panel before us today includes from GEO, the Director of Military Structure and Operational Issues, Ms. Diana Maurer. We also have with us Mr. Greg Omer, the Executive Vice President for Aeronautics for Lockheed Martin Corporation. When we were down viewing the facility, everything's a year ago, but it's probably 18 months now. And Mr. Matthew Bromberg, President of the Military Engines for Pratt & Whitney. And as I understand, Ms. Maurer, you will begin. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning, and I'm pleased to be back before both subcommittees again today to talk about GAO's work on F-35 sustainment and affordability. And my brief remarks on this panel will focus on sustainment, where there have been some positive developments, but there remains a significant amount of work ahead. First, some encouraging news. Mission-capable and fully mission-capable rates for the F-35 show continued improvement. Fewer aircraft are being grounded for lack of spare parts, and average repair times have decreased. However, the program is still not meeting key goals in these areas, and significant sustainment problems remain. All 11 F-35 units we spoke with reported that supply chain challenges continue to drag down readiness. They also struggle to maintain the aircraft because they don't have access to the necessary technical data. ALICE, the Logistics Information System for the F-35, continues to be difficult to use and prone to error, creating a culture of workarounds that undermines trust in that vital system. DoD has taken some key first steps in replacing ALICE, which is encouraging, but that effort still lacks a complete strategy. There remain significant unresolved intellectual property issues, and most notably, it will be several years before Odin fully replaces ALICE. We also found that units are pulling engines off planes more frequently than expected, and it is taking 70% longer than planned to repair key engine components. As a result, there's a repair backlog. At current trends, if unaddressed, by 2024, 1 in 8 F-35s will be grounded for lack of engines, growing to over 40% by 2030. Addressing these and other sustainment problems will require close collaboration between OSD, the Joint Program Office, the services, and the contractors. At GAO, we have 19 open recommendations to the Defense Department that, if fully implemented, could help with the current and future sustainment problems. I look forward to discussing those issues and others during question and answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oldham.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Chairman Norcross, Chairman Garamendi, Ranking Member Hartzler, Ranking Member Lamborn, distinguished members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on behalf of Lockheed Martin and our industry partners to provide you with an F-35 program update, and thank you for your interest in the program. Please know our employees and those throughout the supply chain recognize our responsibility to deliver this weapon system to our warfighters with the most advanced capability and highest readiness levels to keep them safe as they protect our nation. At this time, I would like to ask that my full statement be included as part of the record. If I can leave you with 3 takeaways today, they are that Lockheed Martin is fully invested in reducing F-35 acquisition and lifecycle costs to keep the program affordable, maintaining a technological edge to keep the F-35 a step ahead of our peer threats, and increasing availability to ensure the 5th-gen fleet is ever-ready deterrent for our nation and its allies. To begin, I would like to directly address a major area of concern from our customers, operational and sustainment costs. Lockheed Martin is applying the full weight of our talent and ingenuity to root out F-35 sustainment costs. In the last 5 years, we have invested nearly $400 million to drive sustainment costs in production and increase readiness performance across the fleet. We must continue to reduce these costs further. However, we cannot accomplish this alone. We must attack sustainment costs as an integrated enterprise. Lockheed Martin, Pratt & Whitney, industry, and the government. In addition to addressing manpower and material costs, we believe the most effective way to achieve these results is to establish long-term sustainment partnerships that eliminate the cumbersome annual contracting process and provide more stability for investment. We must also continue to advance the F-35's capability to keep pace with near-peer threats. When Lockheed Martin delivered Block 3F jets with the initial operational capabilities, these aircraft met or exceeded all key performance parameters for the program. Now the program is focused on delivering cutting technologies and advanced capabilities as part of our modernization program to ensure that the F-35 continues to advance ahead of the threat. There are two key pieces to modernization today. Block 4, which includes upgrades that add high advanced capabilities and weapons, and Technical Refresh 3, or TR3, the hardware that adds additional processing power, memory, and an open systems architecture to the aircraft to ensure the system can manage those Block 4 capabilities required. TR3 has experienced cost overruns due to supplier challenges, COVID impacts, and government-directed changes. To address these challenges, we have conducted a root cause analysis and instituted a robust remediation plan that includes foregoing fee such that it could be reinvested to buy down some of the cost overruns to date. Block 4 has also suffered delays, and we're partnering with our customers and suppliers to ensure we remain on the critical path to deliver capabilities as our warfighters desire. We're investing Lockheed Martin dollars along with our customer investments to advance the F-35's capabilities focused on increasing its role in joint all-domain operations. We haven't demonstrated the F-35's unparalleled ability to act as an elevated sensor, seamlessly sharing information in a networked battlespace. The F-35 is delivering capability far beyond any legacy fighter and has the systems necessary to adapt to the changing threat landscape and to continue to serve as the backbone of the U.S. fighter fleet. On readiness, we continue to make progress on increasing the aircraft's availability. The U.S. Air Force recently returned from 18 consecutive months in the CENTCOM area of responsibility, where they flew more than 1,300 sorties with an average mission-capable rate of 73.5%, with many periods of time operating at 80, 90, and even 100% mission-capable rate at some points during the deployment. While the F-35 is delivering for our customers in the field, it is also driving economic growth here at home in the United States, employing thousands of Americans in high-paying, high-technology jobs. The U.S. supply chain alone comprises more than 1,800 companies, 1,000 of which are small or disadvantaged businesses. Lockheed Martin overall has been a champion of suppliers, especially small and vulnerable businesses, during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the first quarter of this year, we averaged more than $430 million weekly in accelerated payments to our supply chain partners, with a focus on small and vulnerable businesses to ensure that they could continue their important work and remain at work during the pandemic. The F-35 demonstrates the strength of American manufacturing and is preserving critical technical workforce for our nation. Additionally, the F-35 is providing alliance-based deterrence. By its very presence, the F-35 changes adversarial plans and behaviors. The F-35's unprecedented interoperability to support operations is transforming how coalition forces train, fight, and win. The F-35's ability to act as a sensor as well as a shooter creates an unmatched cost per effect with limited defense dollars. The ability to perform multifunction not only saves taxpayer dollars, but more importantly, saves lives. It is a privilege to be a part of the F-35 industry team, and on behalf of Lockheed Martin, I thank the members of this committee and the men and women of our U.S. military and their families for their selfless service to our nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brumberg.
Thank you. Good morning. Chairman Garamendi, Chairman Norcross, Ranking Member Lamborn, Ranking Member Hartzler, and members of the House Armed Services Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today on behalf of the 37,000 associates in Pratt & Whitney. Since my last testimony, Pratt & Whitney has had three major accomplishments. First, despite the pandemic, we produced 159 engines in 2020, which was more than contract. And Chairman Norcross, Thank you for your comments. I'll share them with the team. It was a tremendous dedication by the team. And today, there's a buffer of 50 engines at final assembly. Second, we have qualified 75% of the F-135 parts that were sourced from Turkey, and we are on track to complete all transitions by Lot 15. Incidentally, 80% of those parts have been sourced into the United States, creating high-paying, important aerospace jobs. And finally, despite a recent drop in availability, the fleet maintained mission capability above 95%. At the same time, we've also had several challenges. First, engine deliveries were late to contract, by an average 15 days. There are two reasons: COVID disruptions and quality findings. The COVID delays, fortunately, are largely behind us. However, we need to redouble efforts on production quality. Due to our quality management system, these findings did not, I repeat, did not impact engine safety or reliability because they were corrected prior to delivery. However, we need to improve quality in order to improve production stability and cost. And at that end, we have funded and launched a quality improvement program that will reduce the findings by 40%, improving stability and reducing cost. Second, we are seeing cost pressures across production and sustainment. Production cost headwind is a result of COVID and Turkey. In response to COVID, Pratt & Whitney took drastic actions to reduce structural costs. However, the timing of an aerospace recovery and its impact on the supply chain is uncertain. In addition, the directed removal of Turkey from the program will increase engine costs by 3%. And lastly, sustainment costs are increasing as we catch up on sustainment spend, activate the depots, and start working more engines. We recognize that affordability is the most pressing challenge facing the program, and we are committed to reductions. Our successful War on Cost program, which reduced engine costs by 50% through Lot 14, will provide a blueprint to overcome the production headwinds. And sustainment cost reduction can be and will be achieved by leveraging our experience from other programs. In particular, the F-119 playbook will help us reduce engine maintenance costs by 50% through health monitoring, repair development, and depot productivity tasks. Our final challenge is engine availability. While the F-135 met mission capability targets, availability declined in 2020 due to a power module shortage. The primary driver was the delayed stand-up of depot capacity, which led to a backlog of depot work. In early 2020, corrective actions were identified, projects funded, and we are making progress. We are on track to double depot output in 2021 and to double it again by 2023. At the same time, we need to do more to improve availability. While the F-135 exceeds reliability targets, continued investment in the component improvement program is critical. Second, the global F-135 fleet is spared at less than half of other programs. More spares would ensure higher availability. And finally, sustainment spending has been lower than required. We need to urgently fund additional depots and spares stock. Looking forward, it is time to fund an upgrade program. Even though the F-135 is the most capable fighter engine in production, the Joint Strike Fighter is already placing higher demands on the engine than anticipated. In the near future, air vehicle demands for power and thermal management will exceed engine capability. To support future needs, we just completed a roadmap for a low-cost, low-risk spiral engine upgrade program. An upgrade will not only improve warfighter capability, but will also provide substantial lifecycle cost reductions. In conclusion, we acknowledge and own the current challenges. We are confident that the actions in place will improve delivery, quality, and depot production. I see a strong enterprise alignment on addressing these challenges, and we are committed in keeping the F-135 available, capable, and affordable. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today. My complete testimony has been submitted to the committee for the record, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you for your opening statements. I'm just going to ask one question to try to keep things moving, then we can come back to it. I just want to bring to your attention, I'm sure you've all seen it, the Bloomberg report, which is indicative of others. The F-35 overrun means 440 million tab. U.S. taxpayers and allied partners will be absorbing 444 million overrun for the F-35. We're talking about the TR-3. These are the headlines, obviously, that the public is reading along with us. Mr. Arnold, let's start with you. When it comes to the supplier on this particular item, who made that selection? Was that Lockheed? Was it the government?
It was Lockheed Martin with conjunction with the government.
So we've heard from the opening statements and others some of the very real issues that is facing this. You know, the capabilities that along with Block 4 are the ones we all know we're going to need. What's your assessment of where that program is now, given the discussions we've already had and moving forward?
Chairman, there are really three elements, primary factors to the cost overrun. The first has to do with the performance of L3 Harris. The second has to do with COVID impact. We've had some COVID impact. And the third has to do post-contract award. We had some required technology changes to the original design content that we had to change. In terms of addressing these issues, Lockheed Martin has formed a cross-industry as well as JPO program office working group team focused on performance with L3 Harris in particular. Lockheed Martin, last summer, I defined a new organizational construct to address TR3 implementation directly. So I removed that from the development program and put an organization around a focus on TR3 execution. We embedded Lockheed Martin subject matter experts with L3 Harris. We conduct bi-weekly reviews with the JPO in terms of performance on L3 Harris's performance, to include a very detailed 30, 60, 90-day, as well as entire program integrated master plan, and we track our performance with that. We also have senior executive reviews on the TR3. Just about a month ago, the team met with Senior Acquisition Executive Stephanie to give him a status, as well as Admiral Moran. So we continue to be very laser-focused on that effort to ensure that we continue to manage the program. I would say with the implementation of these activities since last fall, we have very successfully stabilized cost as well as schedule performance on the TR3 program.
So you talked about that starting last fall. When did you come to your attention that this was going off the tracks, that the cost and scheduling? Why wasn't that arrived at an earlier date for the corrections? Because I hear what you're doing is corrective measures. That's great. But what could you have done to identify this and fix it earlier?
We identified this as a red program in October of 2019. We began to implement corrective action at that time. The really significant focus occurred over last summer relative to the implementation of bringing additional subject matter expertise beyond L3 Harris's capabilities and subject matter expertise.
Are you comfortable with those corrective measures? We'll be able to address this moving forward?
Yes, Chairman. The fact that we've seen stability in terms of performance since December timeframe, in terms of cost, schedule, and performance, and we are meeting our programmatic milestones on the program, I am comfortable with where we're at on the program today.
Obviously, we have quite a long way to go, and this is so significant for what we need in the warfighter. At this level, we can't discuss it. But I'm going to turn it over to our ranking member, Vicki Hartzler, for questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Maurer, you talked about to have several recommendations in your report to help with sustainment. Could you just go over some of those and summarize those, what you recommend, and give an assessment of, based on what you're aware of, the changes that Lockheed Martin and Pratt & Whitney have made? Are they progressing along those? Have they accepted those recommendations, or where do we still have gaps, do you think?
Sure, thank you. Yes, so we have a number of open recommendations to the Department of Defense and a number of different fronts on sustainment issues. I'd like to highlight just a couple of those that we've flagged as being priority recommendations for the department. I think one of the first thing that's of primary importance when you're talking about Alice and the transition to Odin is having performance measures in place both for Alice and its eventual replacement, knowing when it's actually achieving success. That will help a problem that we've heard about for years, that Alice is getting better, but it never seems to be good enough. Well, you need to have some measure of success. So I think that's important.
So have they implemented those measures yet? Do they have performance measures in place yet?
They do not have those performance measures for Alice. They are starting to put them into place for Odin. So that's encouraging.
Okay.
Another recommendation I would highlight is the importance of developing an intellectual property strategy, and which would include the department gaining an understanding of what technical data it has access to and what technical data it feels it needs to successfully sustain the system. This is a recommendation that dates back to 2014. They have still not implemented it. We think it's vitally important to many different aspects of the sustainment enterprise, not just Alice and Odin, but other aspects as well.
Okay.
And a third one I would highlight is defining a clear strategy for managing the overall supply chain. We have seen progress on this since we recommended this back in 2019. There's a business case analysis underway in the Joint Program Office. It has not been fully implemented. We think that's vital because you need to have a fully effective and truly global supply chain to support what our warfighters need as well as what our allies need who are part of this program as well.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bromberg, I know you are working really hard to try to address some issues with the engines. And could you explain a little bit about your partnership with Tinker Air Force Base Depot and how that works with the F-35 engine, what's driving some of the recent delays in the engine maintenance, and what steps you're taking to try to stand up this issue, as well as the timeline that you see going forward to address those repair issues?
Yes, ma'am, all good questions. So with Tinker, we have a public-private partnership. We have a long history, and we have multiple programs where that partnership is different. For the F-135, Pratt & Whitney is the propulsion integrator. We provide plans and forecasts, we provide support equipment, we provide technical data and subject matter expertise training. The Heavy Maintenance Center provides the floor space, they hire the technicians, they train them, and they deploy them to the work. And of course, the Joint Program Office funds both of us separately. So that relationship is working. I, General Kirkland, General Fick, we're committed to improve that interconnectivity, those touch points, so that we have no gaps and no handoffs. And I think we've made tremendous progress in light of the power module challenge, which I'll get into, at improving that. We're leaning in as well, Congresswoman. Over the past 3 years, we've increased the size of the Pratt & Whitney team down there by 80%. We're adding significant leadership and supervision, and we're going to put additional resources down there as necessary to work side by side, shoulder to shoulder with the maintainers to ensure that they have the best capability, the best tools, the best technical data to overhaul the power modules. To your second question, what happened? It's a good question. In 2019, when I was here testifying and all the years prior, we were on a firm footing. We had mission capability rates in excess of 97%. The engine reliability was then and still is now exceeding specification, and the production of removals, the refurbishments down in Tinker, were keeping up with demand, and turnaround time was fast. And so as we were looking at that firm foundation, we weren't worried about Turkey exiting the program, taking a depot out of the sustainment network, and we weren't worried about sustainment spend that was being reallocated other higher priorities in the program. In retrospect, we should have. So what happened in 2020? Well, COVID impacted us. We lost a quarter of productivity. But we also found, with a heavy concentration of refurbishments, of engines showing up at Tinker, we weren't ready. We weren't ready with the necessary support equipment, the necessary technical data, and that caused a backlog, a traffic jam. This was recognized early in 2020. And again, General Kirkland, General Fick, Pratt & Whitney, we addressed it very quickly with several courses of action. Over the past 12 months, we have caught up on almost all the support we're going to require to support every engine down there. There's a few items I have to deliver by June. We've added an engineering team there to provide all the technical knowledge necessary for them to continue working. We've put over 2,000 hours of training down to the Tinker team. We'll put another 3,000 hours by the end of the year. And we're moving more and more people down there to assist in the maturing and development of the floor space. And we're starting to see the benefits. In the first quarter of 2021, output was twice what it was last year, and we predict by the end of this year we'll have twice the amount of output out of Tinker as we did in 2020, and it'll double again in 2023. So we're confident we're on the road to recover. It'll take a few years to clear that backlog, but we're going to maintain mission capability rates above 95%. We're going to improve the productivity of the Heavy Maintenance Center, and we're going to expand the depot with all these lessons.
Just real quickly, you said you had the problem, you didn't have the technical data. Have you gotten that now?
Yes, ma'am. The technical data is there. It's always a moving target
Okay.
because as you learn more about the engine, you're always developing new technical data, but they have the technical data that's there.
Okay,
The equipment and data that was holding us up in 2020 is not holding us up today.
gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. Yield back.
Chairman Garamendi.
There are so many things that are screwed up here that it's hard to find a focus. There seems to be no single answer. I want to go into Alice and Odin in more detail. The information we've received is that this transition is a neat name change, but that it's not actually working. Who's responsible here? Is this the responsibility of Lockheed Martin, Mr. Ulmer?
Chairman Garamendi, the Alice to Odin transition is being run and integrated through the Joint Program Office. Lockheed Martin is not responsible for the development or integration of the Odin system. We are responsible for supporting as a member in support of the Joint Program Office. In particular, we were asked to build a new base station, so think a new processor for the Odin system. We achieved that milestone last September. There was a congressional requirement to meet that delivery. We were very successful in that regard. So we were able to reduce, for example, the weight of the Alice system to the new Odin system by about 70%. We were also able to improve the efficiency based on new processing power of the new computer by about twice. And then from a footprint perspective, we were able to reduce about 90% of the footprint requirement. That's just the hardware aspect of Odin. Then the intent would be to load the new software architecture and programs, applications on top of that new hardware. And Lockheed Martin is not responsible for the development or the integration of that. That's being run through the Joint Program Office.
Okay. So you got rid of the refrigerator and brought in a suitcase.
Yes, sir.
Well, we appreciate that. It's a piece of the puzzle. We'll ask the Joint Program Office about their piece of it. What role does Pratt Whitney have in the transition, Alice to Odin?
Yes, sir. We live today the engine health monitoring and logistics inside Alice. We'll live tomorrow inside Odin. We have developed a statement of work necessary to transition the capabilities that we need from Alice into Odin. We'll finalize that contract this year, and we'll work side by side with Lockheed Martin and the Joint Program Office to conduct the transition.
Thank you. In your testimony and in the GAO report, the supply chain is a constant piece of the questions. In addition to what was just answered with regard to the question that Ms. Holzer brought to us, the supply chain is not only a system, but it's also the parts, pieces that go into it. Some of that is for the manufacturing of the airplane. The rest, some of it is also for the sustainment. And I want to talk about the sustainment side of this supply chain. Specifically, are there sufficient parts, pieces, and other equipment, not equipment, parts and pieces available on a timely basis for the sustainment and the repair of the various of the platforms?
Chairman, I'll take a shot at answering that on behalf of the enterprise. It's not a simple response. There's many elements relative to sustainment for the platform. From a spares, there's a capacity issue. We have not, the enterprise has not, for example, for organic depot stand-up for the spares and repairs of material. The program early in the development days kind of slowed that process down, and we were not going to stand up the depot organic repair capability until about the 2030 timeframe. We, as an enterprise, decided about 3 or 4 years ago to accelerate that, and today we're on a path in support of that acceleration. So today we've stood up 32 of 68 depots, planned depots for F-35, And by the end of 2024, so accelerating 6 years, we will have stood up all 68 depots. So that helps from a repair capacity. From a spare capacity, we need to continue as an enterprise, both organic OEM support as well as international content support to support the demands of the fleet in terms of the quantities to support the fleet.
Mr. Bloomberg?
Yes, sir. So I can break it down in a similar fashion that Mr. Ulmer did. In terms of the parts that we use to refurbish the engines, we have plenty of stock on the shelf today. There are no part shortages that are holding up the power modules. However, we have to be diligent about stocking ahead of need so I can clear this traffic jam and prevent another one from occurring down the line. That's a priority. Secondly, support equipment. As I indicated, we were behind support equipment in early 2020. We're right on track where we need to be now, and we've ordered $200 million of support equipment ahead of contract. So when the contract comes, we're ready to deliver it to the Heavy Maintenance Center and the other depots around the world. And as Mr. Ulmer said, repair development, we're accelerating that as we speak. We've developed over 250 critical depot repairs for the Heavy Maintenance Center, and by the end of the year, we should double that. So right now, supply chain is not a concern for Pratt & Whitney, but we need to stay vigilant to ensure that we get ahead of need.
Ms. Maurer, in your report, you spoke to this issue of spares and the decline in the percentage of spares required, and now an increase in the percentage of spares. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. At the end of the day, the program gets what it pays for in terms of spare parts. So as currently constructed, the program pays for a non-mission capable supply rate of about 15%, which means they pay the contractors to provide enough spare parts to ensure that planes can fly 85% of the time, absent any other problems. So that sort of guarantees sort of a ceiling to any kind of availability for the aircraft. There clearly are not enough spares to go around because 15% is the target. The actual numbers have been coming down. In our report, it's down to 16%, but that's still above what the goal needs to be. There also continue to be challenges with the global aspect of this. Obviously, there are many different contractors around the globe who participate in the program. Those spares need to move seamlessly to all of the customers. That has not happened yet. There's still an open recommendation we had to the program dating back to 2019, and that continues to be a challenge for the program as a whole.
In your review, did you determine that the shortage of spares is one of the elements in the availability rates?
Absolutely. That's certainly part of what goes into why you're not seeing even higher levels of mission capability. It's a simple lack of spare parts. Maintenance is also an issue as well.
Mr. Bloomberg, in our discussion yesterday, you spoke to this issue and you recommended a significant increase in the availability of spares. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, let me provide a distinction. When I answered your previous question, it was the piece part spares that we use on the shelf to refurbish the engine. If we think about the entire enterprise that Ms. Maurer was just referring to, we had Congress bought a program from an engine perspective that wanted an engine at a certain reliability. We're exceeding that today. We got to be vigilant, as I've commented, make sure we continue to exceed it, but that engine is the most reliable engine Pratt & Whitney's ever produced. It's exceeding program targets. And then we built a sustainment infrastructure to take the power modules and refurbish them as they come in and out. We're behind. I indicated we're behind, but we will catch that. You've got our commitment as an enterprise, the Joint Program Office, the Heavy Maintenance Center, and Pratt & Whitney. We're working overtime to ramp up that learning curve. In the middle are the spare engines required to plug the holes as an engine moves in and out of the operating theater. This program was constructed with 12% spare engines and modules. That's about half of what all my other engine programs were constructed. Very, very lean. When everything is efficient, the engine's at reliability, I'm going to be at capacity at Tinker here in the next couple of years. The system, if everything's running perfectly, will work. But the past couple of years or so is that's a very lean spares ratio. And if we want to maintain availability from an engine perspective, we recommend that we plus up that number of spares engines at least for a period of time as we get up the learning curve. COVID, Turkey, learning curve disruptions has taught us that that's a really lean number and will probably not maintain the availability and readiness that we all want.
So with regard to the engine, if everything's perfect, we're okay. But my experience, perfection is not found in the human experience. and therefore you're recommending that we buy more engines?
Yes, sir, for a period of time.
Just one more question, Mr. Chairman, then I'll yield back here. The cost of the engine's about $12.3 million. And after 2,000 hours, the repair is about $5.1 million. And after 4,000 hours, it's $7.7 million. And if we fly the plane for 8,000 hours, we will have bought that engine 3 times over in maintaining it. It's an interesting situation. I suppose this plane is designed to fly 8,000 hours. Is that correct, Mr. Ullman?
That's correct, Chairman.
So with regard to the engine, just to maintain it over that 8,000 hours, we will have spent as much money as purchasing a new engine. Interesting relationship. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Ranking Member from Readiness, Mr. Lamborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bromberg, you mentioned the power module issue. What specifically is Pratt & Whitney doing to fix that problem? The growing repair issue problem with the power module?
Yes, Congressman. So as soon as we recognized that we had a challenge in early 2020, we started devoting tremendous resources. First, we ordered all the support equipment that would be necessary for 2020, 21, and beyond. So all that support equipment has been delivered to the Heavy Maintenance Center for this year, with the exception of a few pieces that will be delivered by June, and we're ordering in advance of the need for the Heavy Maintenance Center for 21 and beyond. Secondly, we put a full team of engineers on the ground in Tinker, working side by side with the maintainers so that they could help them work through engineering questions and move modules through the maintenance center. And finally, we've dedicated a tremendous amount of engineering resources at Pratt & Whitney to provide improved tech data, work instructions, so that they can continue to learn and produce power modules at a much faster rate. These efforts are all now starting to show the benefit. Last year, an average engine would be work stopped for technical data or support equipment on average 30 to 40 days. This year, those work stops are down to less than 5 days. So we're making huge progress at training, maturing, and getting the power module throughput that we need.
Has the expected life expectancy of the power modules problem been solved with the steps you've taken?
So just to clarify, Congressman, the reliability of the engine, the reliability of the power module is exceeding specification. It's exceeding the requirements. It's incredibly reliable. My challenge is just to clear the backlog, the traffic jam in Tinker, which we will do side by side with the Heavy Maintenance Center. So,
okay, thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Ulmer, what is Lockheed Martin's view of the need to share intellectual property with the Department of Defense?
We absolutely do need to share that intellectual property. Today, per the contract requirements, we provide the intellectual property and the appropriate data licensing. Last year, we were asked to propose a proposal for provisioning and cataloging data to support on the sustainment, and we responded in response to that proposal, submitted that proposal, awaiting the Joint Program Office response to that.
So the DoD shouldn't have any complaints on this question. Is that true?
We are providing the IP and data rights per our contract requirements. I mentioned the depot stand-up, the 32 of the 68. I know of no data or tech issues associated with that. We've been supporting that requirement to the satisfaction of the depot stand-up. I think there are desires for additional cataloging and provisional data, and we will respond to that as an industry. Lockheed Martin does not own all the intellectual property or data rights for all of the material, and so we will continue to work with the government to support the government's requirements.
And you said a minute ago per contract or per contractual obligations. Was that contract poorly written in the first place? Because there have been complaints about the amount of data sharing.
Yeah, I think the customer desire for tech data, intellectual property, data rights has changed over the life of the program, and so the requirements have changed. And I think that today the government desires more access to intellectual property and data rights.
And will Lockheed Martin supply that?
Yeah, we will propose and supply that data as we will contract to supply that data.
Okay. Ms. Maurer, I'm going to finish up by giving you the chance, now that you've heard the different give and take from the two industry partners here. Do you have any comments on the responses that you've heard so far?
Yeah, thank you. I think what you're hearing is a nice illustration of how the program actually operates, right? The Joint Program Office and the services and OSD set the construct, and the contractors execute. There have been some problems with execution. To some extent, that's expected with any kind of system as complicated and sophisticated as the F-35. But that said, this is a government-driven program. So a lot of the problems that we're hearing about today in terms of sustainment are really rooted in the program's inability to focus on sustainment when it should have. You know, these are a lot of the things we're talking about today in terms of affordability, data rights, supply chain, should have been decided 10, 15 years ago, and they weren't. And so with a high degree of concurrency in the program, we're now having to dig ourselves out of a very deep hole that should never have been created in the first place.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. And to the Chairman of Sea Power from Connecticut, Mr. Cordy.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, just to follow up your comments earlier, back in March of 2020, when Governor Lamont in Connecticut, like all of the governors, was ordering a shutdown, a lockdown in response to COVID, it coincided with Undersecretary Lord's designation of critical infrastructure for all defense contractors, including Pratt & Whitney in Connecticut. So those workers still had to show up, even though there was big challenges with PPE. And obviously, it was a much scarier situation in terms of just trying to even understand, you know, the threat and the production levels that Mr. Bromberg indicated. Again, really, those workers just, you know, totally performed and did their job, and really deserve everyone's, you know, appreciation. Ms. Maurer, I just want to go back to the intellectual property issue. Again, on pages 9 and 10 of the GAO report, again, you talked about a survey that was done, I guess, of all the depots and different maintenance facilities, and that came back, it seemed like, still as a sort of #1 concern. Can you talk a little bit just in terms of what does that mean? I mean, in terms of the not having the access to that, how does that delay things or, you know, add to cost? I mean, how does that play out?
Sure. So for our most recent review, we reached out to 11 different forward deployed units that have F-35s. And we wanted to get the perspectives of people who are working on the line. So these were line maintainers and commanders and pilots and so forth. One of the things we heard from them, that there was frustration in their ability to fix the airplane when something went wrong. Many times they would spot a problem, and from their experience from working with other systems, they could kind of tinker around with things and fix other systems. With the F-35, they didn't have the technical information or sometimes even the tools to make those changes. So they have to pull components off the aircraft and ship it out to a depot, and that's where the majority of the actual substantial maintenance is being performed. So what we're hearing from users on the front lines was that if they had access to more technical data, access to more of the specialized equipment, they would be better able to address some of the lower level maintenance problems. Now, we didn't get into all the technical details on that, but that sort of jives with some of the things we've heard from talking to units in the past as well.
And we're seeing in sort of new programs coming through the Air Force that, in fact, they are restructuring the contracts to sort of have greater control, right, of the intellectual property. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've seen that in some of the other programs. There are certainly trade-offs with doing that. Technical data is not free.
Right.
So as part of the contract negotiations, there would be a cost involved. So that would be something that we'd want the JPO to certainly examine. And I know that there are discussions within OSD and other parts of the department now to bring more of the sustainment of the F-35 organic into government and take some of the responsibilities off the contractor.
So what Mr. Ulmer described as sort of, you know, incremental movement as far as, you know, dealing with this issue, again, because as you point out, this is something you guys have been flagging since 2014.
Yes.
I mean, well, if you did a survey today, you know, of those frontline facilities, I mean, would they say, you know, problem solved, or at least problem is in the process of being solved, or is it still too kind of clunky in terms of just trying to, in terms of what's happening?
I think what we would hear and what we heard in our most recent review is the problem has not been solved from their perspective. It is clunky. If they want to get information how to fix something, they have to work sort of indirectly. They have to talk to someone higher in command and get to a contractor and get the information, have it flow back down. For their desire on the front lines would be able to do it themselves to a greater degree. Now, obviously, that involves trade-offs with contracts and money, and that it's not an easy or obvious solution. But what we're hearing from the front lines is they would like to have more technical data, and they're able to do more of the maintenance than they're currently allowed to do.
Well, again, we heard from the opening statements and certainly the press reports that, we've got a challenge here that people have got to work together to address. And when the president's skinny budget came over and showed that the top line for the department as a whole is going to have certainly some downward pressure, frankly, there's no other choice. But people have got to sort of change in terms of how this program operates if it's going to be at all sustainable. I yield back.
Thank you. And virtually, we have the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman Norwood, and we appreciate the witnesses being here today. And Mr. Ulmer, how is calculating the sustainment cost of the fifth-generation fighter and its internal components different from calculating the sustainment cost of the fourth-generation aircraft? What recent improvements has Lockheed made to reduce the total cost?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. When we look at sustainment for the F-35, we really break it up into three elements. Lockheed Martin is responsible for about 39% of the O&S costs for the airframe. The propulsion system's approximately 13%, and the U.S. services are the remainder. Over the last 5 years, the Lockheed Martin content that I'm responsible for, the 39%, I've been able to reduce by about 44% over the last 5 years. Our models are predicting we're going to reduce that another 40% in the next 5 years going forward. There's many different aspects of how we do that, how we make that improvement. We've talked about some of them already. The sparing, Lockheed Martin has gone at risk to procure spares in front of the requirement of the contract such that they are on the shelf when necessary. We're also very focused on repair turnaround time for the supply that we're responsible for. So we've established public performance requirements and contracts with our suppliers to get in front of those requirements. We've seen significant improvement in terms of repair span reduction and repair cost. Also very focused on the diagnostic and prognostic systems on the aircraft. When the aircraft was originally fielded, we were getting false alarms, if you will, from the system of the identifying items that needed to be removed when in fact they weren't. And in the, probably 5 to 6, 7 years ago, that was on the order of 60% false alarm. We are north of 90, 95% of cleaning that up as well. We've mentioned Alice. We've had continuous improvements with quarterly releases with the Alice system. We've seen significant accomplishment. So, for example, we've been able to, from transferring one aircraft from one squadron to another, used to take days, now takes minutes. We've seen the workload relative to the maintainers using the Alice system and various different elements of 40, 50, 60% improvement using the Alice system. We're also very focused on reliability and maintainability improvement. So the elements that break on the airplane, we understand what the top offenders are, the canopy, the digital aperture system cameras, the wingtip lenses, and we have corrective actions in play relative to improving those items. And those items that were on the top 5, top 10 list 2 or 3 years ago are no longer on that list as we've brought corrective action to that. And so we're continuously working to refresh that as well. So those are the kinds of things we're bringing to the enterprise relative to reducing cost from an O&S sustainment point of view on the program.
And hey, thank you for that update. That's very encouraging. Additionally, Mr. Bromberg, Pratt & Whitney has challenges with on-time engine delivery. While you've achieved online deliveries for the end of 2020, recent quality escapes will drive up delivery delay times for 2021. What are you doing to ensure on-time delivery?
Yes, Congressman. As I indicated, although we did deliver the required number of contracts and engines to contract in 2020, we were not happy with 83% of the engines being late. Again, I compliment the team, the supply chain team, for delivering in spite of a pandemic, but we have to improve that 15-day late on average. So we launched an investigation as to what the causes were. The causes in 2020 were COVID-related. That's largely behind us. Also, quality findings. As I indicated, those quality findings are caught and corrected inside Pratt & Whitney's factory or the suppliers, so they don't impact the field reliability or safety, but they need to be addressed. So starting in 2019, we created and funded a $60 million quality improvement program that was staffed and launched in 2020, and now it's going to be on a multi-year journey to attack the heavy hitter parts, the ones that are causing us the most pain, and improve their manufacturing processes by bringing the latest Industry 4.0 manufacturing, automation, and digital tools so that we can have a much more stable, higher quality production system. That's what we launched in 2020. We're about a year into it now. We'll start to see the benefits of it in late 2021 and 2022.
Thank you very much. I want to join with Congressman Courtney in commending your workforce, all professional. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now the Chairman of Intel and Special Ops, Mr. Gallego from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ulmer, I understand that F-35 has made great strides in integrating capabilities among internal DoD sensor-to-shooter systems, but I'd like to know what your company has done to integrate F-35 capabilities among our allies, specifically our NATO partners.
Congressman, the F-35 comes as a system to everyone that procures the vehicle. So the systems that the Air Force procures are the same for the allied nations. So the work that we have done relative to interoperability, joint all-domain operations are inherent in our allied airplanes as well. We've seen we receive extremely positive feedback. For example, Norway and the Italians are currently flying NATO Arctic missions with their F-35s. The response and feedback we get from those customers are the interoperability, the integration, the gathering of the data from the sensor suite, the data fusion is game-changing relative to their integration. The other thing that we're finding is as they integrate with U.S. service forces, it is very seamless. So as the U.S. Air Force comes and participates with the Norwegians, with the Italians, with the Israelis, very first deployments, co-deployed together, interoperable, functioning well as a unit. So we hear very strong comments in regards to that.
Good, that's good to hear. Ms. Marr, in your testimony, you noted an improvement in the amount of time it takes these companies to retrieve parts, but highlighted the fact that wait times at overseas locations were problematic. Do these delays have a different impact on U.S. forward deployed aircraft versus our allies who probably have everything at the depot right near them?
Right, so thank you for the question. And generally speaking, things are working much better with the spare parts provisioning here within the United States. As you correctly noted, that those things are being delivered on an on-time basis. It's still a problem overseas, and that's a function of the complexity of the supply chain that the program in partnership with Lockheed Martin is trying to develop. They're trying to move parts across many different countries. And because they did not take on this challenge years ago, they were late to the game in working through some of the mundane but really important issues of customs and moving things across national boundaries. That has created delays. I know when we were in the United Kingdom for some work a couple of years ago, we heard some concerns from the Brits about their ability to obtain parts in a timely manner. We're encouraged that those numbers are coming up, but remain concerned that they're not yet meeting targets.
It's scary to think that in terms of our ability to project power or deter Russia, for example, it may be a customs issue that's stopping our planes from flying because we need a widget and we can't get that widget through customs. I feel like that's something that is it's not even a hardware issue. It's just like a people issue that you should have people that actually focus on this to make this seamless.
Absolutely, and there's a related problem as well. We have an open recommendation on the spares packages that the Navy or the Air Force and the Marine Corps use when they're deployed. they have not been properly aligned with the specific requirements of the systems that they're deploying with. They have been making progress on doing that, but that has created some challenges for getting those units ready for operational deployments.
Wow, okay, thank you. I yield back.
Virtually, Mr. DeChalais.
Thank you. Mr. Ulmer, the F-35 modernization has been covered in detail. To bring this back to the basics, though, could you explain the current Block 3F as well as the TR-3 and Block 4 development, and then also provide the importance to the warfighter that comes from increased capability of Block 4?
Yes, Congressman. So I mentioned really two aspects of modernization. Tech Refresh 3, think the new hardware required to host the new applications of new capabilities on the aircraft. There's really two elements that demand the tech refresh to the aircraft. One is obsolescence. We no longer have the ability to procure the parts of the previous processor to support the program of record. The second really is that increased processing power that's required relative to the new capabilities. Much like in our own lives, in terms of our smartphones, our computing devices, we continuously need to update the processing power associated with the applications that will be applied on the aircraft going forward. That really is the essence. There are three significant components that will be brought to the airframe in regards to the Tech Refresh 3. The first is the new core mission computer, or the integrated core processor for the airplane. The second is the aircraft memory unit. And the third is the panoramic cockpit display that the pilot uses to understand the sensors and the information being provided to him. Those are the three main elements from a hardware update to the airframe. What's really interesting about that, it will not, once we get to the ability to implement that hardware on the aircraft, it will not require depot maintenance for the aircraft. The fleet field maintainers will be able to implement that hardware onto the airplane in the field. The second element is Block 4. Think the applications that will be applied on the new hardware. Those really evolve around several elements: electronic warfare, comm, nav, communication on the airframe, weapons systems on the airframe, increased data fusion on the airframe. So those are really the key core capabilities that will be brought with new application that will be hosted on the new TR-3 hardware.
Okay. Much has been made about the challenges within the F-35 program, but little has been offered about the jet's performance in the air. How has the F-35 performed in live training exercises compared to other fighters, and what are the pilots saying?
Chairman, we hear very strong comments in support of the F-35, comments such as game-changing, quarterback, incredible situational awareness relative to the battlefield, increasing knowledge relative to the threat environment that the aircraft operates in, not only to the benefit of an individual F-35, but the information that a single F-35 gathers is shared across air, land, and sea aspects so that they can see what the F-35 can see. So it really does help situational awareness, battle space management. It really provides an advantage. In particular, we hear from our international partners, the interoperability aspects of the program, the fact that you can, one nation can fly alongside of another coherently, very successfully, and interoperable, really provide an effect to the warfighter. The other thing that we learned from the F-35, it really helps the fourth generation as well as not just the fifth gen asset. So because of the data sensing, the data fusing, the understanding of the battle space awareness, the airplane really does help inform other members of the I'll say package going into a situation, and informs them you can operate freely in this space. You need to be in regards to this threat over here. It really does help situational awareness, not only for the F-35, but everyone else around them.
Well, I appreciate your testimony today, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. DeChalais. As you've noticed, we are now voting, and the chairman, Norcross, has gone to vote. And so we're going to cycle in and out. I'm going to announce the next three members to ask questions: Mr. Brown, Mr. Bergman, and Ms. Sherrill. Mr. Brown, you are virtual. So if you would take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question's for Mr. Ulmer. We've heard a little bit about depot maintenance capacity today. It is my understanding, I think we all understand that the department is behind in standing up an organic depot maintenance facility for the F-35. Can you just tell us what Lockheed is doing on the repair side to help stand up the depots more quickly, and when we will complete stand up of all the depot repair lines?
Yes, Congressman. Lockheed Martin, in terms of depot stand-up, we have accelerated the stand-up. I mentioned earlier our original plan was to stand up the 68 depots in support of organic F-35 support in the 2030. We are now accelerating that to have all 68 depots stood up by the end of 2024. As we stand up those depots, the activities we undertake to help those really are information we've talked about, providing the technical data, the material required, the lay-in material required. We also inform the depots. We take subject matter experts and work with them shoulder to shoulder to help them understand as they begin the repair. We also work with our industry sub-tier suppliers as they will support different elements of depot stand-up. We bring them into the equation. We ask them also to provide the tech data, the subject matter expertise, initial throughput support to ensure that the depot has the ability, the technical wherewithal, and the resources to execute that work.
Thank you. Mr. Bromberg, I have a question for you. It's regarding the allocation of funding for modernization and sustainment and the allocation between the air vehicle and the propulsion system. And, you know, how would you describe it? Is it sufficient? Does it enable the kinds of upgrades that need to occur in the propulsion system, or are we sort of ignoring or neglecting the propulsion system as we prioritize the air vehicle?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman, for the question. You know, as the demands of the airframe and the tactics have evolved, fortunately, the engine has been able to support it. However, we do need to focus funding on upgrading the propulsion system. Now, with the Joint Program Office and spending some Pratt & Whitney technology money over the past few years, we developed a roadmap that was submitted in March that will enable us to provide more power, more thermal management, better fuel burn, and enhanced thrust out of the existing F-135. But that program is not funded. My concern, Congressman, to your point, is if we don't launch that program, then we won't have the engine ready to support the Block 4.3 upgrades that are in front of us. Again, we have a path to do it. We can upgrade the F-135 in a manner that maintains the unit costs we're at today, that supports the sustainment cost reduction, that'll provide a module upgrade that can go right into the power module, the heart of the engine. We can insert it in production. We can insert it in sustainment. We can maintain the variant commonality and the partner commonality that this engine has supported. So we have a plan. We do need to get it funded so that we're ready for the need.
Thank you. And my last question for Ms. Maurer. You've discussed and others have the need to share that technical data. Mr. Ulmer mentioned it as part of what they're doing to assist in standing up depot maintenance capacity. You mentioned the lack of that data at the unit maintenance level. What specifically can or should we be doing differently to get the technical data where it needs to be on time?
Sure, so thank you for the question. I think first and foremost is that the department needs to develop a clear strategy for the technical data it needs, make decisions about that, and then negotiate with the contractors to obtain that technical data. I think one of the fundamental problems that the program has faced for many years is that the program office has not developed a strategy to make strategic decisions about the level of technical data that they want. And Mr. Ulmer is absolutely correct. The department's interest in technical data has changed over the years. When this program was first launched 20 years ago, the idea was that everything was going to be handed over to the contractors. Since then, there's been a change in view, but the strategy has not come up to speed with where the department is right now. So we think that's important for them to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the few seconds I have remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We're alternating Democrat and minority and Republican here, and therefore Mr. Moore is up next, and then I'm going to turn to Mr. Sherrill. I see that Mr. Bergman left, so Mr. Moore, if you're there, you're next. Well, we're going to be flexible. Mr. Moore, one more time. Ms. Sherrill, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first question is for Mr. Ulmer. You discussed some of the modernization efforts and needs of the F-35, but is there anything more that needs to be done to keep up with the improvements in armaments in order to maintain superiority?
Congresswoman, there's quite a robust weapon system update as part of Block 4. I didn't get into the details, but there are a series of weapons. I can get that information to you. I can take that action off the record, but there is a substantial effort relative to bringing additional weapon systems on board to the aircraft. In addition, as part of Block 4, we're also allowing the ability to carry more internal weapons inside the airframe. We call it, today it can carry 4 AIM-120 missiles inside the aircraft in the stealth configuration. The part of the TR-3 Block 4 modification will allow us to carry 2 additional weapons internal to the aircraft as well.
Thank you. And this is a question for both Mr. Ulmer and Mr. Bromberg, but I'm happy to hear from Ms. Maurer about this issue as well. I'm concerned, of course, about the sustainability and repair issues associated with the F-35 engines and the effect those issues have on mission capability. I believe current estimates show, without some sort of mitigation effort, that increased engine issues of increased complexity combined with the lack of repair resources lead to over 40% of our engines that do not have serviceable engines, 40% of our aircraft. Further, our current rate of mission-capable aircraft are 70% or below on all F-35 variants, with fully mission-capable aircraft available at a rate of 54% or below on all F-35 variants, with the F-35C hitting only about 7% fully mission-capable rate in 2020, according to the GAO. So if that rate of 30% or more of the aircraft being non-mission capable today is sustained, and combined with the rate of 40% of non-operational due to a lack of available engines in 2030, even with significant overlap, that implies the majority of our aircraft will be non-operational or non-mission capable by 2030. So my question is this: what percentage of non-mission capable and non-full mission capable aircraft are due to engine issues?
You want me to? I'll start. So again, it's a great question, and it covers many elements of the entire weapon system platform. From an engine perspective, we've maintained 95% mission capability. Now, we're not happy with the availability challenge we have, that there are some jets that don't have engines in it. I wake up every day concerned if I don't have an engine in the jet, I don't get a pilot in the seat. That's not acceptable. So that's why we're working overtime. The cause, again, of the power module availability issue is the backlog, the traffic jam at Tinker. So we have plans in place to improve it. The numbers that you referenced, 40% degradation, that will not happen. The mitigation plans we put in place should keep us around 95% mission capability. And what we're now doing is trying to figure out how to accelerate that and how to move even faster and provide even better, higher mission capability. And we have plans in place to do that. As I indicated, it's about accelerating depot production by putting additional depot capacity online and probably putting some more spares in the fleet initially. So engine has maintained.
And about what percentage, as we're talking about non-mission capable and non-full mission capable aircraft, what percentage are due to engine issues?
I would have to come back to you and take the mission capability numbers for the engine and relate it to the airframe numbers. I don't want to misquote that, so I'll take that as an action, unless Ms. Maurer has that.
I know from the data that we collected as part of our report, we were showing that this was about 4% roughly of a contributing factor. So we would characterize this, it's definitely a problem now. It's a small p problem now. It will become very much a capital P, underline bold problem if sufficient actions are not taken now. We actually have an ongoing review currently that focuses specifically on the issue of engine sustainment, and we've been conducting audit work at the Joint Program Office and at Pratt & Whitney to sort of get behind some of the things that Mr. Bromberg discussed, and we'll be publishing our findings on that sometime later this year.
Thanks so much, and I'm running out of time, so I will submit the rest of my questions for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
Mr. Green. Mr. Green? Is he online? I can't see. So then, Congresswoman Spears, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start by asking Mr. Elmer and Mr. Bromberg, how much money did you get from the federal government during the COVID crisis?
Ma'am, this is Mr. Ulmer. We have not received any additional funds relative to COVID through the pandemic at this point. We have been tracking issues associated with labor loss, the different activities associated with social distancing requirements within our manufacturing system and our workspaces, but we have not collected any additional fees at this time relative to that.
And from a Pratt & Whitney perspective, we also did not take any COVID relief funds. We did benefit from the Department of Defense program, which accelerated progress payments. We took about $400 million of accelerated progress payments, and we used that to support our supply base. That was a very effective measure, as many of our suppliers were not able to withstand the pandemic impacts as well as Pratt & Whitney. So all of those funds came into Pratt & Whitney and directly to supply base, but we received no COVID relief funds inside Pratt & Whitney.
All right. To what extent have you been able to move your manufacturing of spare parts from Turkey? Each of you, please.
Congresswoman, this is Mr. Ulmer. We had 817 parts that would need to be resourced out of Turkey. Today, 814 of those spare parts have completed resource. Approximately half of those have been completely resourced, so we are no longer procuring those parts. There are a handful of parts that we reached agreement with the U.S. government through the Joint Program Office that we will procure through the remainder of the contract that was let at the time the decision was made to remove Turkey from the program. Those are three main parts. Those parts are associated with the landing gear and the center fuselage. Those parts will end and complete their delivery in March of 2022.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Romberg.
Yes, for Pratt & Whitney, we have 188 high-technology parts that had previously been sourced in Turkey. These are some of the most critical parts in the engine, and the Turkey suppliers were high-quality, low-cost. 75% of them have been qualified in new suppliers. Most of those are domestic here in the United States. We'll have the remaining 25% qualified by the end of the year, and by the time we deliver Lot 15 engines, which will be in mid-2022, all those parts will be sourced domestically or in this new supply base, 20% of international, but none of them in Turkey.
Thank you. Ms. Mara, I can't begin to tell you how appreciative we are of the work you do on evaluating the F-35. I was pretty alarmed by your comment that, two comments in particular. One about the intellectual property, and secondly, that by 2030, without some resolution of these problems, 800 engines or 43% of the F-35s will be grounded. Tell us what we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen.
Sure, thank you very much, and we're always happy to support the Congress in F-35 oversight. And I think one of the first things that you and the other members can do is to continue to have hearings just like this one, to maintain attention and maintain focus and continue the oversight of this vitally important program. And this is a $1.7 trillion investment over a period of many years, so continued congressional attention is critically important. On the engine issue, I think as we mentioned earlier, this is currently a problem. We have ongoing work to assess whether the fixes that are underway right now are going to be adequate to head off the situation that, if unaddressed, the program will face in around 2030. So stay tuned for our results of that work later on this year. In regards to technical data, we're a bit frustrated that our recommendations going back to 2014, that the department develop a strategic approach to its technical data needs, and then executing on that strategy have not been implemented. We continue to have discussions with the Joint Program Office. They are starting to make some progress on it, but they have a long way to go. Access to technical data is an important part of sustaining this vital system, and we hope that they continue to make some progress there.
All right. I only have 26 seconds left, so I'm going to yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ulmer, I'm sure you're aware, and we've talked today about the numerous reports over the past few years about the cost of the F-35 program. In my district, I want Selfridge Air National Guard Base, and one of my goals is to get the F-35 wing station there. But with the delays and the cost overruns of the program, right, especially the operations and the maintenance costs, this is making it difficult to bring the program and to talk about the program for my district. My question is this: it's my understanding is that the goal for fiscal year 2012 was for the cost per flying hour of the F-35 was about $25,000. And I wasn't here in 2012, so I'm trying to get a better understanding is, what is that cost now?
Congresswoman, first of all, just a little clarity around that number. So the target was $25,000 per flight hour by 2025 in 2012 dollars, okay? So as the program existed in 2012, that a cost per flying hour would cost $25,000 by 2025.
Okay.
In 2017, for a United States Air Force A model, the cost per flying hour was about $41,300. By this 2020, we've reduced that down to $33,300, about a 20% decrease in terms of cost per flying hour. And so we're very focused on continuing to support that reduction. I mentioned Lockheed Martin's responsible for about 39% of that, the propulsion system's 13%, and the remainder are O&S costs that serve fuel, support, manning, et cetera. And so the elements that we're very focused on to reduce that cost per flying hour is the availability of spares, the availability and improvement of repair turnaround time, improved diagnostics on the airframe to really help the maintainer troubleshoot and turn the aircraft faster, increased prognostics performance on the aircraft, the prediction of when parts will fail on the aircraft, as well as reliability, maintainability improvements. So we understand what the bad actors are in terms of parts and pieces on the aircraft.
Sure.
And we're constantly working to improve those. Sometimes we'll resource a part to a different requirement or specification. Sometimes it's bringing slight improvements to those items, but we've seen significant improvement in terms of reliability, maintainability on the airframe as well. So it's really a full spectrum approach to get the cost out.
Do we measure that am I looking at it the right way in terms of cost per flying hour?
Yes, ma'am. All those kinds of elements we have discrete increments, and we understand how they apply to that cost per flying hour. And then we attack those different elements.
And we're on target to bring that down roughly by 20%. Is that what I heard you say?
So from the Lockheed Martin aspect, we see another 40% reduction in the next 3 to 4 years. But there are other elements across the enterprise we need to focus on. Okay. And I have the ability, industry has the ability to help the maintainer, the O&S service, relative to the actions I take. And they can take actions to help me. So it really is an enterprise approach to get cost out.
Thank you. My second question is, according to the GAO, the sustainment cost of the program will be about $6 billion over budget in 2036. What is Lockheed doing to ensure the government is not overspending on this program? And I know you touched on it a little bit, but if I could just get a better, simple understanding of it so I can take it back to my district and really fight to bring the program back to my district and give confidence.
Yeah, a couple other thoughts really is we today contract in annual increments relative to sustainment of the airframe. One of the things that we suggest we do as an industry and an enterprise is do more of a performance-based logistics over a longer period of time. And what that will allow for is industry to make long-term investments relative to getting our suppliers, sub-tiers ourselves, to make investments to bring reliability, maintainability improvements to the platform. That's another. The other are the elements I talked about relative to that. Also, the Alice Odin. We really need to stay focused on reducing the time it takes to use those systems, the integration. We're also focused on reducing contractor support footprint that co-deploys with our users. So we have seen improvement. We have more work to do with that as well, and we're very committed to getting, boots on the ground, off the ground. I would say it's interesting, in the COVID world, we've learned how to do things remotely that we never knew we could before.
Sure. There is some silver lining.
There is a little bit.
Thank you, sir.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. We have three more, Mr. Bergman, Mr. Bacon, Mr. Moore, and then we're going to transition to the next panel. But before I defer to Mr. Bergen, I have a question, just to follow up on the turkey question. The cost increase, we are collectively absorbing those. But when it comes to replacements, and I know that we heard from Mr. Broomberg, from a Lockheed perspective, how many of those new sources are domestic versus foreign?
Chairman, I'll have to take that for the record. I'll get you an answer as soon as I can.
Okay. And I know we had this conversation, the parts that were already manufactured or in the system, my understanding they're going to bleed out, be used until they are gone. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman. We're still using parts from Turkey until we shift over to Lot 15 next year. Lot 15 will have all new source parts, most of which are domestic.
If you could get us a list in terms of non-domestic in particular.
Yes.
And for Mr. Elmer, are you bleeding out the parts also? We probably could come up with a better term, but.
Yeah. So we're resourcing the parts. 50% of those parts have already been resourced. So today, the parts that are coming in support are resourced parts.
So we bled out those. We didn't.
Yes, sir. The remainder will be bled out or resourced between now and the March of 2022. But the majority of those parts, I want to say, I think I mentioned earlier, 814 of the 817 have already been resourced. We just have to consume the parts on the shelf.
Thank you for defining that. Mr. Bergman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got just kind of one quick question, although it appeared really in Lieutenant General Fick's testimony, and I know he's in the next panel, but I wanted to, here's the question. The Joint Simulation Environment, okay? If the Joint Simulation Environment is a pie, and that pie is broken down into sections, what percentage of the pie getting the JSE up and online and fully functioning, what percentage of that pie sits in Lockheed's court, and what percentage of the pie sits in Pratt & Whitney's?
From a Lockheed Martin standpoint, we are required to provide what's called F-35 in a box. Thanks the simulation of the F-35 itself as a representation within the government lab known as the Joint Simulation Environment. I can't tell you, I don't know the other elements. It's a government-developed integrated lab.
Well, the reason I asked the question is again, was stated here in some of the media, is that there were some issues. You know, we're always going to hear, as long as we're on the face of this earth, it's a software problem. It's an integration problem. It's a whatever. We got that. That's our future. I guess my question is, if we're being delayed with producing F-35s because the Joint Simulation Environment is not up and running, I need to know, where do we, as the elected body here, put the oversight and the emphasis so that pie, if you will, the JSE pie, comes complete, and we're moving F-35s off the line, you know, the production line onto the flight line into the battle?
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well. I want to see the success of the joint simulation environment. I have provided that simulation for the F-35. I've also provided subject matter expertise relative to that integration. I also provided the intellectual property and the data associated with that integration. So the Lockheed Martin content I gave to the joint simulation environment government officials such that they could help.
Is that, and again, I'm not trying to pin you down to numbers here, is that what you provided, is that half the pie?
No, sir, I would say it's probably less than 30, 20%
Okay.
of the pie.
And how about Pratt and Whitney? By the way, this is just more information gathering to find out what the whole pie looks like as we make decisions here.
Yeah, sir, I'm going to have to come back to you on that. I don't think that Pratt & Whitney's engine is holding up the joint simulation environment, but let me look it up and get back to you.
Okay, I appreciate it. I thank you for that, because we're all in this together.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a comment up front and then two quick questions. But first I want to commend the chairman because I think you bring the right spirit to this discussion, and I don't see that replicated in all areas, so I appreciate how you're responding. You know, at a time of growing contention over the availability of the viability of the program, I think it's critical that congressional oversight be based on fact, not overreaction and grandstanding. Unfortunately, the public interest and our national security are not well served by a one-sided presentation. These attack lines are dangerous because they undermine public confidence in what is the most significant and consequential military modernization program for the United States, our allies, and freedom-loving nations around the world, and that is the F-35. So I publicly agree with Chairman Smith when he said that it's the job of this committee to ensure American taxpayers are getting a fair return on their investment, and we hold government and industry accountable for results. I could not agree more. This committee has pushed the F-35 to a better spot. But I think we got to acknowledge two sets of facts. The performance of the F-35 is unmatched. It is truly a transformational weapon, and many aspects is exceeding expectations. This point is universally acknowledged by pilots, maintainers, theater commanders, and our international partners who fly it. The actual 2019 contract unit flyway costs for the F-35 have dropped below $80 million per copy and will continue to fall. But the second point is also true. The program is not perfect. It has maturing to do. But this is what I'd like to stress. Every major aircraft program in recent decades have had aspects that have struggled when it was developed. And the F-35 is no different. But when all said and done, the F-35 is unmatched. Its weapon system, it's the one weapon system that we have that can penetrate highly defended targets. And the F-35 is changing the balance of forces in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, so we need to keep a balanced perspective. In its totality, this is a successful program with aspects that we need to improve. This is the weapon system that can penetrate the most dangerous air defenses in the world. So I just want us to keep this thing in perspective. We have areas we want to improve, but in many aspects, this program is excelling. So I have two brief questions, just for my own satisfaction. The UAE sale, I support it. There are members of Congress who are pushing back on it. I think it's going to be important for deterrence in Iran and for our partners here to have this capability. But what will this do as a secondary benefit to the average unit cost, sustainment costs, and so forth? How will the UAE sale help us in this area?
Congressman, at the time of if the acquisition goes through, and it is a government-to-government decision, I will respond to whether or not we have the ability to export and what configuration will be provided to the Emirates. But at that point in the program, we're actually kind of coming down the backside of peak production. And so the benefit will be, from an economic order of quantity, it will help increase the production quantity. And purely from supply and demand aspect, that'll help keep the recurring cost of the aircraft down in simple terms. I can get specific with you. I can take it for the record relative to quantities at that point in time, their delivery profile, and the current contract deliveries, and I can give you a more informed response in that regard.
Obviously, the real value is the deterrence value in the Middle East with our allies and right across the strait with Iran, but I think there's a secondary benefit here. I just wanted to make that point. Also, Mr. Ulmer or anyone else on the panel here, what feedback are you getting? We've produced over 600 aircraft, deployed them, many of our allies. What are the feedback are you getting from our allies, as well as the services, in how the F-35 is performing in its operational role?
Chairman, or I'm sorry, Congressman, we were hearing it.
I like the way you think, but go ahead.
We're hearing, to your points that you've made, it's game-changing. The advantage that the F-35 is bringing is really situational awareness to the battle space around it. The sensor suite that it has, the very low observable characteristics allows it to get to places that other assets can't get to. We're finding secondary positive effects, so the sensor suite collects a lot of data. We have vignettes where our customers are flying operational missions and the aircraft discovers threats or entities that we did not even know existed.
Right.
Within the normal, actually within or better than the current OODA loop within the system for those detection of those kinds of threats.
When I served in the Air Force, I was working on aspects of those sensors and those links, so it's so great to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're about ready out of time, so I'll have to yield back.
Oh, I was just going to add from an engine perspective. I haven't met a pilot that didn't want more thrust out of an engine, but they all say they love the thrust and power of an F-135. The durability is unmatched. In fact, many pilots have complained that we will ingest and operate with a bird or other foreign object damage and keep flying. That keeps the pilot safe and the platform safe. So it's fantastic performance. The last thing we hear is from the Marine Corps. The extremely fast, capable control system allows them to focus on their mission and landing the jet while the throttle is steady. So we get very positive feedback. We got to stay diligent on upgrading the engine, but very positive feedback from an engine perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just real quickly, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay.
Please.
When we talk to pilots as part of our work, we hear rave reviews about the F-35 when it is flying, and that underscores the importance of making sure that the system is sustained and is done in an affordable way.
Thank you. As Chief of Staff Brown said, and we all like to drive that Ferrari every day of the week, but sometimes you got to drive the Chrysler and the Chevy, and we love them all, and there's no question this is an incredible aircraft. The TR-3 Block 4, when it comes online as projected now, a quarter century has gone by since the development, and we're looking at those emerging threats that were not even envisioned when we started this program, and that's the challenge, as we all know. With that, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chairman. I will briefly associate myself with the comments of Representatives Bergman and Bacon. And first, Bergman, when he said that we're all in this together, I believe that. And second, with Representative Bacon, thank you, Chairman, for allowing us to have a very productive conversation today. I am obviously very interested with respect to my district, Utah 1, in Hill Air Force Base with the F-35 program, and I am committed to making this a very, very productive conversation to the committee, to the stakeholders. Our team is ready to dig in and make this a positive for our nation. And so I really appreciate the concept behind, we have to keep this conversation productive and find the best way forward. And the point that I will make, and I can tell from the extra comments that were given by the panelists about feedback, that's the part that I also want to be able to bring. I've interacted closely with many of the airmen and the fighter pilots in Hill Air Force Base, and this plane is unmatched. This plane can simply not be beat. When they're flying into war, they want to be on the F-35. And so we have sustainment and operational challenges that we need to address that will always happen when something new is brought online. I will definitely do my part, and that's my commitment. So, Mr. Ulmer, let me jump in with as many questions as I can get into my time. We've covered today the F-35 modernization in detail. Can you please explain Block 4 development and provide the importance to the warfighter that comes from increased capability of Block 4?
Yes, Congressman. As I mentioned, really Block 4 sits on top of the Tech Refresh 3 relative to the hardware requirements. So think a new Mission Core processor, as well as a new cockpit panoramic display for the pilot and a new memory unit, which will allow the airplane to save a lot of the data and the information that it collects. In terms of the development, in terms of applications, really very centered around EW increased capability in the EW system, as well as communications, navigation, additional work on data fusion and representation of that information not only to the crew, but the other F-35s and other air, land, sea, and underwater aspects as well. It's also very focused in terms of infill, exfil of information. So as the data is collected, some of that data is classified. The airplane has the ability to appropriately declassify and exfil that information to other aspects. Interoperability, improved performance in terms of interoperability. So those are really the main tenets when we look at Block 4 capability.
Excellent. Can continue on with that. Will you, but all the plans for retrofitting the fleet of field F-35s with Block 4 capability changed? Block 4 cut-in slips and if it changed with the Block 4 cut-in slips, and who fits the bill for any additional retrofitting that would be required there?
Today, the program still supports inline production in Lot 15 timeframe, so think 2023. So we are on track to deliver those aircraft with the TR-3 hardware. There is no slip currently as we speak relative to those deliveries. The fleet modification really is customer by customer dependent based on their own requirement. And so there are several different COAs that have been established relative to different modification updates to the TR-3 and the Block 4 configuration. I believe for the United States Air Force, but I need to take this for the record to clarify, but I believe the U.S. Air Force intends to update LRIP 11 up in terms of aircraft that will receive the modification, but I need to confirm that for the record.
That's great. I appreciate your transparency there. So thank you. Final quick question, Mr. Bromberg. What's being done to provide the additional overhaul capacity required to address recently discovered some of the reliability issues with the F-35 engine? And any comment towards catching up with demand?
Yes, Congressman. So starting in early 2020, we focused significant efforts on improving overhaul capacity, depot capacity down in the Heavy Maintenance Center. That includes accelerating the ordering of the tooling required to be deployed to the floor. They have everything they need absent a few tools which will be delivered by June. We're ahead of that need. That included providing the right technical support and technical data so that they can move those modules through the Heavy Maintenance Center. They have everything they need today, and we have a team down there to support. In addition, we're ordering tools in advance of need, both for the Heavy Maintenance Center and other depots to come online. So you're going to see progress here over the next few quarters as we double output in the Heavy Maintenance Center in 2021 and double it again in 2023.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll yield back. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. And unfortunately, because of the open environment we're in, we can't have that deeper discussion for all the members of these committees, and quite frankly, ask, please be part of those classified briefings where we actually get into those challenges, those emerging threats, and what we can do. And obviously, Lockheed is very much part of that next generation. Where we started 25 years ago and where we are today, it's an incredible craft, but it's always about that next step, who's coming at that. And we appreciate each of the witnesses today for bringing their perspective to this very challenging project, and look forward to working with you again. So, Ms. Maurer, we'll see you in a few minutes. From Lockheed Martin, Mr. Ulmer, again, we appreciate that. And Mr. Bloomberg, and again, make sure the employees know we appreciate it just as the warfighters do. With that, we're going to suspend so we can clean the room and come back with the second panel.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.